Why did the Israeli Interior Ministry make an announcement Israel knew would anger its closest ally, the United States, while the American vice president was on an official visit?
It's a good question. We were also taken a bit by surprise. This was a local zoning and planning board, and these groups meet all throughout the country in the various localities where zoning and planning regulations are done. We said to the Americans we were also surprised by this public decision.
Let me get this straight. The Israeli Prime Minister is not made aware of Israeli Interior Ministry announcements that are so controversial. I mean, the Israeli Interior Ministry acts sort of alone as its own boss in this case?
No. I think all countries that have got democratic systems of government, when you've got a situation where you have local authorities and different ministries, it's not really incumbent, it's not the job of the central government, of the Prime Minister, to be involved in local planning boards where they're making decisions about zoning and so forth.
But this directly impacts the peace process and peace talks. This is not a local zoning board decision only in the way the world perceives it. This has a direct impact on Israeli-Palestinian peace talks, and the Israeli Prime Minister was completely unaware of the impending announcement?
Well, I tell you what we were aware of, that this current Israeli government, the government of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, has gone further than any previous Israeli government in showing flexibility, in showing restraint on the issue of settlements. I mean, we are right now.
But you keep building settlements in the West Bank, even though you promised not to.
Not true.
No, it is true.
No, we're in the middle of a moratorium, which is preventing all new construction of housing and new authorization of housing.
But expansion continues to happen, so in the spirit of it, you continue to expand settlements in the West Bank.
On the contrary, there was a report by one of your competitors that interviewed Palestinian construction workers who were saying that since the Israeli freeze has come in, they are unemployed. It's a very real freeze. Anyone who is there can see that new housing just isn't starting, and this is our commitment. And we've done this because we see the importance of moving the peace process forward. But we always said, and here I'm being very honest, we always made a distinction between the West Bank and Jerusalem. Jerusalem is Israel's capital, and it will remain as such.
So essentially, you're going to continue to expand Jewish housing in East Jerusalem, regardless of the fact that the United States is unhappy with it, that most countries around the world today condemn the 1,600 new home plan, and that the UN says is occupied territory.
Well, let's be frank. Jerusalem is one of a whole series of issues that have to be negotiated between Israelis and Palestinians, all those core issues. And what we're saying is, let's start a process of negotiation. Let's start a process of engagement. Now, we've been ready for the last 10, 11 months for negotiations with the Palestinians without any preconditions. Now, that hasn't been allowed to happen because the Palestinians haven't let that happen yet. So we're now apparently moving, and we hope it's possible, to proximity talks. But ultimately, how are we going to solve all the very difficult issues, those complex historical issues that are on the table? Only through negotiations.
But Mr. Regev, you say no preconditions when you say Jerusalem is non-negotiable. You say then that the Palestinians must recognize Israel as a Jewish state. So you've established all these conditions, then come on and say no preconditions. Those two things are contradictory.
No, not at all. We are saying we're willing to discuss, meet with the Palestinians for face-to-face talks without any preconditions. They can bring all their positions to the table. We, of course, will bring our positions from the table. That's very different from saying, I will not meet and talk to you unless you agree to our positions, which unfortunately is what the Palestinians have been doing up until now. I hope, we believe, that's about to change, that we're close to the beginning of these American-orchestrated proximity talks, which we're hopeful and thankful that the process is finally getting back on track.
Just let's get back to the 1,600 homes there. Did Mr. Netanyahu apologize directly to Mr. Biden over the announcement?
The first thing that we have to say, we're not talking about 1,600 homes that are going to be built tomorrow. This is the very preliminary stage of a bureaucratic process. This is not an authorization for building. Even the Ministry of Interior said there's a 60-day period where people can come in and it's as part of zoning and planning. Anyone who has a complaint, anyone who believes the plan is a bad plan, So once again, we're not talking about building tomorrow.
But did he apologize to
issue,
Mr. Biden? I mean, the question was, did Mr. Netanyahu apologize to Mr. Biden for this embarrassment, what many, even in your press, are calling an embarrassment?
We were very frank. We said we were just surprised
so
as
no
much
apology.
as the Americans were. And of course, we said very clearly that we had no desire whatsoever to cast a shadow on this visit. On the contrary.
Did he apologize, though? Did he say,
I am sorry?
Obama
administration?
Yes.
We said very clearly that no one on the Israeli side wanted to cast a shadow on the visit.
So that was an apology or not an
Ultimately,
apology?
I think I spoke very clearly. We didn't want to cast any shadow on this visit, and we want the visit to be a success.
Okay.
Ultimately, we've had very good talks with the Obama administration. We've got good relations, good working relations, good personal relations, and ultimately, America and Israel working together, that's the way best to move forward in peace. That's the best way to deal with the regional challenges, and we are working together very closely.